Today we're going to think a little bit about the leader and his relationships, cultivating people skills in your relationships. Relationships for the leader are going to be vitally important as he or she begins to move God's people towards a better tomorrow. Jesus, when he washed the disciples' feet in John 13, was displaying servant leadership, and this is something we need to cultivate. As much as we have vision, as much as we have priorities, we must also remember that we too are sheep under the great shepherd. We're called to serve, not to lord it over people. And Jesus said in verse 15 of John chapter 13, "See, I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." He did this out of relationship with them. You know, when I undertook my first batch of theological studies, I studied with a group many years ago in the 1980s. And when I looked at the module of pastoral care, it emphasized and re-emphasized that the pastor must keep a distance between themselves and the people. They're not to have friends in the church because that might be seen as favoritism by other people within the congregation. And that was the attitude at the time. Yet Jesus had friends. He had 12 particular friends who became apostles. But within that 12, he had 3, Peter, James, and John. And within the 3, he had 1 who wrote a gospel, John himself. It seems that friendships were a normal part of life. And having friends as a pastor and a leader is not a bad thing. In fact, pastors and leaders cannot isolate themselves from people. Having friendships also makes the leader vulnerable. Judas was a friend who betrayed Jesus. There was a song popular many years ago called "Why?" and it said, "Why did it have to be a friend who chose to betray the Lord? And why did he use a kiss to show them that's not what a kiss is for? Only a friend can betray a friend. A stranger has nothing to gain, and only a friend comes close enough to ever cause so much pain." One of the reasons that leaders will keep themselves distant from people is fear of vulnerability, fear that something in their life will be highlighted, fear that people will get too close, fear that they will be betrayed. Now, you're going to have to trust me on this. People will betray you, will let you down, will disappoint you, whether they are your friends or not. One of the things that often surprises me is that the people that you invest the most in are the ones who actually become those who let you down in the end, where you feel the most disappointment. You need to sort out this relationship issue within your heart pretty quickly as a leader. I myself am very task orientated, so I like talking about vision, I like talking about priorities, I like talking about the work. But actually the work of God is people. And if we forget that, then we're just becoming robotic and mechanical within our leadership. One of the things that separates Christianity from most of the other world religions is the centrality of relationships. Our faith is built around relationships, not creeds necessarily, although they're important, and not disciplines, although those are important as well. Consider this: when Jesus was asked what was the greatest of all commandments, he said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and your mind and your strength," which is a vertical relationship. And then he says, "and love your neighbor as yourself," which is a horizontal relationship. Jesus did not say, "By this all people will know you're my disciples," that you've memorized 50 verses of scripture, or that you've preached 7 times on a Sunday. He doesn't say any of that. Instead, he says the world would know you and know that you're my disciples by the way you treat each other. Christianity, at its heart, is about relationships. Many Christian leaders make the mistake of separating relationship from leadership. This happens when a person steps into a position of authority and leadership, and they think just because of their position that everybody will follow them. That might work for a little time, but it's not going to last for a long time. See, people look beyond the position to who you are as a leader. Who you are must be likable, must be friendly, must be approachable. Look how approachable Jesus was throughout the Gospels. Look how many people came to him and touched him, how the children flocked to him. He was a people magnet, and so must leaders be. See, one of the things that I discovered early on in my ministry, and one of the things that church growth books told me, was that people decide if they're going to stay in a church when they're visiting for the first time. They're going to stay in that church based on a few things: the worship and the quality of the preaching. They'll decide those things on the first day, but they will stay in that church because of their friendships that they develop. My friend, work on your people skills, work on being likable, work on being someone who is approachable, someone that is known for their heart for people, and you will discover that God begins to unlock for you new keys and new opportunities in your ministry. Jehovah,